Honeycomb's big. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not small. No, no, no. Honeycomb's got a big, big bite, a big, big taste, and a big, big bite. Hopefully, everything is starting and going, or at least trying to go. I tried to make sure I got everything as shut down as possible because you know how it goes. Hopefully, everybody's able to hear okay. It looks like we've got things going live. If you haven't heard, first of all, welcome to Julia Pop. Second of all, our theme today is cereals, and they're funny because Stephen did ask me. He said, Stephen did ask me. He said, "Is it mascots like sports mascots, or is it specific to cereal mascots?" This time, it is specific to cereal mascots. So as you can see, I'm kind of writing alone tonight. I do not have a peanut gallery, so I'm going to have to rely on as many of you commenters as possible to get in there and comment. And so I know I have some of you that are really great at doing that. So those of you that are here, feel free to comment away, join the conversation, be part of Julia Pop. So, as I said, today we're doing cereals and mascots, and I guess I didn't realize exactly how much cereal stuff I had until I started looking around the house, the magic room, all kinds of places like that. So, those of you who are watching, welcome. Those of you that end up watching later, you are also welcome to comment away. I get notifications whenever you do comment so that I can chat with you about everything that we've talked about. So, with no further ado and no further announcements to make, first of all, it's funny because for the All Things Celtic, I think, was the one where I wore my Lucky Charms shirt, and then I thought, oh crap, what shirt am I going to wear for cereals and mascots? Then I remembered, oh, that's right, I'm a wrestling fan, and one of my favorites is the New Day, was the New Day. They're not really happening as much anymore, but they had their own cereal called Booty-O's, and they actually came out of a box of Booty-O's for WrestleMania. And then this particular one is when Kofi finally won the championship on his way to New York WrestleMania. Of course, it is WrestleMania season for those of you who are or are not wrestling fans. There's a lot to love and that I love to talk about when it comes to wrestling. So I'll always make it fun, whether you know the topic or not. We're always going to have a good time. And welcome to Crystal. And Crystal said, better than serial killers. You say that. Yeah, I'm probably never going to do a serial killer episode, although, I don't know, maybe my mind can be changed. Scary movies, stuff like that. I have a lot of friends who that is their favorite thing. And I don't want to step all over that, and I don't have nearly as much like knowledge, learning, etc. About all that. But if I ever get one of my friends on that's a guest, I might rethink that. But I will tell you this: there are enough. Don't you think there are enough serial killer blogs, vlogs, live streams, podcasts? You tell me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there need to be more. But if so, I'll encourage my friends to do a show just like this, just about serial killers. But we're doing cereal, the kind you eat. And so we'll get into all of the fun stuff, the origin of it, everything. I've got my little cheat sheet here with me, and I'll try to remember to show you everything about that. And of course, Crystal does have cups for all that serial killer stuff. So, by the way, let me take a moment to hawk my best friend's product. She does mugs, and she's extremely talented and does everything is custom, like custom tumblers and mugs, and she has some serial killer ones. Yeah, so those of you that are interested in that kind of thing, and I'll bet you, if you buttered her up, she could probably make some really cool cereal mascot ones as well. All of the ones that she does are one-offs, and it's really fun to see all the amazing stuff that she comes up with. That is Rosewing Designs, and that's my friend Crystal, so you are welcome to get a hold of her for any custom orders that you'd like to do. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Like I said, we're talking about cereals and mascots. Now, how did we get here? How did we get to all of these mascots that we know and love so well? So we're going to do just a small beginning here as far as the origins of, honestly, of cold cereal itself, because it is really mostly a 20th century invention. So, of course, one of the mainstays of any human's diet is grains. So barley, hominy, porridge, oatmeal, all of these were made up put into water and heated up and mixed and milled and pressed and all of the different things that you do to get a delicious cereal. It can sustain you through the day. It helps the people work out in the fields, all of those other kind of things. So that is the general origin. Basically, cold cereal has its roots in hot cereal or the different grains that we originally would eat. And in 1854, a fellow named Franz Schumacher from Akron, Ohio, so he has a very German name, but he comes from Akron, an immigrant, creates a place called General Mills American Oatmeal. And so he has a very specific way of hulling and rolling the oats that makes it very handy for people to just buy it. So they don't have to roll their own. They don't have to mill their own. They can just buy them as is, pour them in water, heat it up, delicious food. Yes, and so Crystal did bring up a very great point. Kellogg Brothers started it as a healthy breakfast. Yes, and so one of the big things was, especially with Mr. Schumacher and his oats, were that it was easy to do and it could be good for you. So he was going with the ease of it, and he was lots of Irish immigrants and German immigrants remember the porridge and the hominy and the barley from their past, and they would buy it quite often. So right here, kind of in the middle of the country, is where it really took off. So in 1877, he changed the name of the company to Quaker Oats and created a symbol, which is the Quaker fella. You guys always remember, the little Quaker man on your Quaker Oats and on all other kinds of things. And so that was the big part of that. Now, from that, a fellow named Anderson also was making his own kind of hot cereal, but he was using steam pressure to shoot rice and wheat from guns. He had this like pressurized gun that he could push that grain through, and it came out puffed. So whenever we think of corn pops, those are puffed. Whenever we think of sugar, sugar crisp, all of those things, those are puffed. So basically they've been extruded or they've been like popped through a pressurizing gun, essentially. So you just shoot them out. Sounds like fun, right? And that was one of the ways that they started making instead of making just hot cereal, they started making cold cereal that could be shelf stable for a long time and would also be something that could be enjoyable to eat. Now, from that, then we also had H.P. Crowell. He was the main marketing man. He was the guy that was a big part of making sure that the Quaker on Quaker Oats got promoted. They also used celebrity promotions back in the 20s and 30s. So people like Babe Ruth, Shirley Temple, they would use radio show sponsorship to try to get more people. Now, eventually, Quaker Oats, the company, ate up a whole bunch of companies. Then they themselves got ate up by PepsiCo. So, you know how I talked about our soda companies previously? All of those companies have a tendency to conglomerate. So like Colgate Palmolive, Unilever, all of these different brands will have a whole ton of different brands all under the same thing. So eventually Quaker chewed up the competition, but then they got chewed up by the competition. Now, in the 19th century, as Crystal brought up, there was a big, almost religious push to be healthier. It was part of the religion. It was also part of people wanting to be healthier and to live longer. And so different things like spas came into existence, sanitariums, the idea of vegetarianism, so no meats. And so one of the main guys that did that was J.H. Kellogg. So one of the Kellogg brothers that Crystal is talking about, started in Battle Creek, Michigan, happened to be a Seventh-day Adventist, which is a religion, a Christian, under the Christian umbrella, and he was trying to get more people to be more healthy with the food, with things they were putting into their bodies, the things they were doing with their bodies. He was definitely a believer in some other kind of things that were some good for you, like not smoking, some very bad things that he did, because he ascribed to some things that didn't really give the kind of equality that everyone deserves, if you know what I mean. So he had some bad ideas too. But one of the good ideas was cold cereal. He was experimenting with granola and managed to turn it into flakes. And so from there, he started cornflakes. So in 1895, the first Kellogg's cornflake came out. Now, a couple of things that I do want to bring up, just little side notes. Movies to watch, shows to watch. There is a movie that came out in the 90s called The Road to Wellville, and it's a somewhat fictionalized, but there is some history to it, story of J.H. Kellogg. So you've got, I think, Anthony Hopkins playing J.H. Kellogg, if I remember properly. You've got John Cusack is playing a role in there. It's a very large cast of a lot of people. And it's pretty funny, and it does kind of touch on that idea of Battle Creek, Michigan. And of course, from Battle Creek also was J.H. Kellogg's brother, W.K. Kellogg, and he was trying to use the recipe as well because J.H. Kellogg was doing it for, for us to be all healthy, and W.K. Kellogg was trying to sell stuff. And so those two brothers clashed quite often in a whole lot of lawsuits. And so you see a lot of times the Kellogg's branding will say WK or will say JH, depending back in the day on which brother was putting that out there. So eventually W.K. Kellogg wins out. His marketing skills become legend, and that's how we know the Kellogg brothers to this very day. And one of the other things I highly recommend to watch is The Food That Built America. And they do one on the Kellogg brothers. They do one essentially about cereal, and it also talks about C.W. Post. He was another one. He was previously a patient with J.H. Kellogg, and from there he was also from Battle Creek, and because he started his own company, Battle Creek became known as the cereal capital of the world. So whenever we talk about Battle Creek, Michigan, all of that cereal goes hand in hand. And so yes, Crystal is correct. The brothers fought over the ownership, not only of the company, but of who gets to use the last name to market. And so that was a hot mess. But then, of course, CW Post comes along as additional competition. And so he had originally, with his company, created something called Postum. And what that was a coffee substitute made from grains. And it was supposed to be healthier for you, better for your gut health. Eventually, he creates in 1897 something called grape nuts. Have you ever eaten grape nuts? They're kind of awful, to be quite honest. I've never liked them. If you do like them, good on you. But they are neither grapes nor nuts. Discuss. So basically, because they took a nut-like shape is why he named them that. I'm not really sure why grape came into it because that's not in, neither of those things is in the makeup of it. It's essentially just a wheat grain that they rolled up into tiny little pebbles, and people ate that. And then, of course, Post was a similar way. As Post Company grew, they also ate up other companies and eventually got eaten up. And I did not make it all the way to the top of the chain to see what Post is under now. But, of course, like I said, they've all conglomerated. And Crystal agrees with me. Yuck. Totally agree. Never been a fan of grape nuts nor grape nuts flakes. But yet again, that was where CW Post got started. Now, what I bring up with W.K. Kellogg and CW Post was marketing. Now, this is where we get a little bit closer to talking about all of the mascots of all of these different cereals. Now, one of the earliest mascots was one that I hadn't heard of until I studied up on it. There was a flake brand called Force Flakes. Anybody ever heard of that? I had not heard of it until I started studying. And in as early as 1902, they had a little fellow by the name of Sonny Jim. And he was actually, he would start out the advertising on the radio as, yes, Inger agrees with me, welcome as well, and also agrees that grape nuts are gross. 100%. Couldn't agree more. I don't know how they're still on the market at all. But Force Flakes had a fellow named Sonny Jim, and he started out very sad. Then he ate the Force Flakes and got all of this energy. And so he was started here in the States, but he became extremely popular in the UK. So the cereal actually got more popular in the UK. It's very similar to Wheaties. What we know of as being that wheat flake, that's what Force Flakes were. Now, one of the big advertising slogans we all remember growing up in the 60s, 70s, 80s was part of a complete breakfast. You notice how it wasn't a complete breakfast, even though those of us that ate it, usually that was all we had, was a bowl of cereal with some milk and then ran on, maybe some orange juice. But of course, they would lay it out in all the commercials and have the toast and the orange juice and all of the extra things. And so they're trying to get kids to eat a little healthier, to eat a little breakfast, and to specifically eat their breakfast. So their target audience was the children, and so cartoons were on TV quite a bit, lots of children's programming, and of course the mothers were watching too. So the kid would watch, find out that they wanted Maypo, go yell at their mother to get Maypo, and mother would be like, "What is this?" Go to the store, find it, and then circle of life happens. The kid gets their cereal, they're very happy, and then we move forward. So we want more ways to entice the kids than just, oh, hey, it tastes good. Because basically it's grain, and sometimes it would have some sugar added, sometimes it had a lot of sugar added. And so in order to do that, they would do things like toy prizes, mail-ins, or games. Now the original one was a checkout, when you were checking out at the front, scanning out all of your items, or typing out all of your items, because it was that long ago. In the early 1900s, when you were at the checkout counter, let's say you had your Force Flakes with you, and you paid for them, you would also get a freebie, basically. And so sometimes it was a little bowl. One of the big ones, and one of the beginning ones, was called the Funny Jungleland Moving Pictures Book. So it sounds to me like it was a flip book, but basically in 1912, the Force Flakes did that. Kellogg, actually, it was W.K. Kellogg that started adding things just to kind of get, more parents and more kids to do that. And so around 1909 to 1912 was when these little items, and they'd crop up once in a while, but it wasn't really a big explosion of that. And so Inger says, morning cereal is how my mom got to sleep on Saturday. That's right. She didn't have to wake up and do eggs, bacon, all of those other things that, of course, the Kellogg's didn't think was very healthy. So you could just wake up as a kid, walk in there, get your bowl of cereal, sit down and watch your cartoons on Saturday. And we are going to do a separate episode just about Saturday morning and how that felt and what that was. It includes cereal, of course, but we'll talk about the cartoons. We'll talk about getting mom and dad allowed to sleep in, so we kind of do what we wanted to. That was the time for kids, right? It was Saturday mornings. And then Crystal says, is that where the prizes started? Yes, absolutely. So between W.K. Kellogg and Cracker Jack. Cracker Jack was a candy, a little box of, caramel and nut covered popcorn. And Cracker Jack started putting prizes into theirs in 1912. And so you have 1909, 1912, right around that time period, people are trying to get coupons and all those other kind of things. So they were trying to get offers. And so that's where the little prizes started. Now, one of the big prizes in the 40s was something called Pep pins. They would have just a little pin button, and that pin button would have just, and it could have just about anything on it. It had like a little army soldier on it. It would have Mickey Mouse on it, which might not have been okayed by Disney. And so we hadn't quite gotten into the particular mashup that was combined branding. And so, but pet pins were very big, and they're collector's items to this very day. If you manage to find a pet pin, it's a pretty big deal, and they do cost quite a bit. Now, one of the other things you could do is you could mail in. If you remember on Christmas Story, Ovaltine, he drank all that Ovaltine, he saved up all of the little lids and proof of purchase, sent them in with whatever it cost, and got his little decoder ring just to find out to drink more Ovaltine. But those were the kinds of things in the 40s and the 50s, even into the 60s, that you would get with proof of purchase. So you would use the box top oftentimes with the cardboard cereal boxes, and you'd send those in, and there were any number of things that you could get. You could get record albums even. You could get all kinds of toys. And like I said, Christmas Story is a perfect movie example of the things that you could get like that. Now, of course, since then, box tops for education. And so, of course, the cereal companies ask people to turn in the box tops. The more your school turns in, the more money they donate to your school to show, hey, we're eating a lot of Post cereal. Please send us a bunch of playground equipment. And so a lot of box top education type things. Now, one of the big ones that I found that I was genuinely surprised by, in 1947, Kix cereal came out with a Lone Ranger atomic ring. What the Lone Ranger has to do with atomic bombs is beyond me, but it was a tiny little ring, and this ring had a few different chemicals in it, one of which was polonium-210, which is radioactive, but it was in small enough category, and it was encapsulated in a way that apparently it didn't do any harm. However, if you take a Geiger counter to one of those, and those are out there and they sell for great money as well. They're big time collector's items. It's like a little gold ring and has like red and gold on it. And I sent pictures to Steven, of course, my in-house scientist, to ask him questions about it. And it was such a crazy story. But if you put a Geiger counter up to one of those rings, it will go off. Like it does have properties of being radioactive. So yeah, let's get some radioactive stuff into the cereal, kids. In the end, it was not terribly dangerous, but it was, you know, it could have been. So, Linda, very much welcoming you here. Better late than never. No worries at all. We're glad that you're here on the conversation as we talk about all the favorite cereals. I do remember a story of you telling about how you would buy Special K for yourself because there were kid cereals and there were grown-up cereals, and Special K was kind of one of the grown-up cereals. Well, when Julie started eating the Special K, Linda would get mad because that was her cereal. Steven, on the other hand, is off just trying to eat his Cookie Crisp in peace and wondering why, like, he needs his Cookie Crisp. Let's just buy a box of Special K for Julie, and let's buy a box of Special K for Linda. The grown-ups are allowed to have the cereal as well, whether that has kid stuff or whatever it is. Whatever tastes of cereal, you do that. So do feel free, everyone, to chime in with your favorite flavors of cereals that you have, because we're going to start talking a little bit about the brands. Oh, oops, almost forgot. Sorry. When I'm here on my own, it's a little trickier because I'm like, oh, I still have this list to go through. So one of the other ones is, of course, sports cards. In the bottom of the cereal box, you dig down and you'd find a little flap that you would open up, and it would have sports cards, and some of them were 3D and holographic and really cool, and some of those have become collector's items too. Now, interestingly, Captain Crunch had something called a Bosun's whistle. Do you ever, in fact, usually the beginning of most Captain Crunch commercials has a whoo, that whistling sound. That's a Bosun's whistle. Apparently, the Bosun's whistle that you could find in a box of Captain Crunch was 2,600 hertz. And what that was a sound that you could make that sound into a payphone, and you could get phone calls for free. A lot of people have tried to debunk that rumor, but it really was possible. I also deferred yet again to my in-house scientist Steven, who was talking about the 2,600 hertz that it was capable of, and it was just one of those weird mistakes. Like, they were just making a plastic whistle. They didn't realize that that particular pitch was going to be able to get computer and electronic things happening in a way that ended up getting people, free phone calls on a payphone. But feel free to look that up. Have fun with that story, because that was an interesting one. One of my favorite things on the back of the cereal box, because most kids would like read the whole cereal box, right? There would be like cartoons on the back, or there would be like a story on the back, or you were just reading the ingredients and it's like, what the hell is high fructose corn syrup? Oh, it's delicious. So that happened quite a bit. But one of them that was my favorite was that on the back they would have a record, and it was just made out of plastic, but you could cut it out, put it on your record player, and the grooves would actually have some sort of music or message or something like that. Of course, they didn't last very long. I haven't seen very many of those out for sale, but that was kind of one of my favorite ones that I had. As I was looking around the magic room, I realized I didn't have very many of those prizes left. One of my favorites was a little tiny square. It was just a little mini safe. It was only big enough to have like one little plastic dial that I could dial in the numbers, open it up. It would fit maybe a child-size ring in it. Maybe you could fold a tiny crib note into it. But unfortunately, that has gone missing over the years. But my children got a few things, and I wanted to show you those. And of course, in cross-branding land, we do have some wonderful, and I'm going to turn this off so you can get a better look at it. You'll get to look at, we've got our lovely BB-8 Star Wars, and he has a little hole at the bottom, and you can look at the inside the hole at the bottom, and it's almost like a Viewmaster. And so I got C-3PO and BB-8, and then they also at one point got Sonny, who's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So I had a cute little guy of him that came in one of the boxes of cereal as well. So those were the ones that I was able to find. And so, sorry, that light goes on and it kind of blares out there just a little bit. But I will say this, I did manage to find two interesting magnets from a brand called Freakies. One of my favorites. Basically, it was just a corn popped cereal that was in the shape of little kind of monster things. And the Freakies characters were the ones that would try to sell them. Now, an interesting thing is you'll notice that I have two of the same, and these are magnets, two of the same magnets. So this particular character was one of my favorites, Snorkel Dwarf. I got it in a bag or in a box of Freakies. Now, this one is from Steven. And so when he was little, he also got the same magnet. And then when he grew up and moved out, he kept the magnet. I, of course, kept mine as well. And we have matching magnets. Aw, how cute, right? so so those are the oldest and kind of at this point the only ones that I have that were actually in a box of cereal that Stephen ate, that I ate. And then, of course, with the advent of television and television commercials was a big part of the explosion of trying to get kids to buy a specific kind of cereal. And so, of course, all of those characters that came up created specifically to sell you something, to sell you cereal, essentially. And so all the jingles, all the cartoons, now certain cartoons would have, so we would take cartoons that were already established and have them sell stuff. So, side note, Fred and Barney Flintstone, or Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble, would also sell Winston cigarettes. But that didn't last very long. The selling of cigarettes by cartoon characters did go away. However, what did stick around was the Flintstones and, well, Barney and Fred mainly selling Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles. Now, this little guy, this is one of my lunch bags, and it's I Heart Revolution. I found it at Target, and that particular brand would have fun and do some little things like this. And of course, Fruity Pebbles was part of it. And so, you know, when I saw that at Target, I had to buy that as well. One of the other things that I bought was Lucky Charms. Does some fun things. And what's great about this is a lot of these companies that are doing it now, they're doing it almost like a throwback. And so this is just like a little kerchief, little headband. I mean, I might as well try it on, right? And see if I can make it, and figure out how I can make this look cute. Whoops, I already did it backwards. Whoopsie. I promise I'll get this right. There we go. And so, you know, when it's windy outside and you don't want your hair to blow around, you have this lovely, probably child-sized Lucky Charms. It's got all of the different, you know, green clovers, pink hearts, orange stars. Am I going to name these all and still remember? I'm not sure. Purple horseshoes, unicorns, multicolored unicorns. Let's see. Oh, they switched from heart. Or, no, they have pink hearts. Red balloons. That's right. Orange stars. Green clovers. Blue moons. How could I forget the blue moons? So thank you. I'd like to thank myself for remembering all of those. And at the same time, they were also selling bracelets. So, of course, I've got rainbow because they did have rainbows for a while, and they've got a unicorn on that one, and then the classic four-leaf clover. And so, of course, I have ridiculous bracelets for that. And then one of the final things that I bought when I was at Target was they had like a little desk set with Fruit Loops. And the great thing about this pen and about this highlighter is they smell like Fruit Loops. And so, of course, if you're drawing or doing anything like that, you have little Toucan Sam here. And then, yeah, you can have all of your homework smell like you can have all your homework smell like Fruit Loops. So, sorry, I just had a drive-by from Stephen, who is probably too busy to come be the peanut gallery. But hey, I at least brought it up. So, hey, Stephen. And then, so I think that was everything as far as what I had. Well, no, I take that back. I actually did buy the pins. If you saw any of my other posts, you'll see, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off the light so you can get a load of these little guys. I've got Fruit Brute from the Monster cereals. The Monster cereals being one of my all-time favorites. There's Fruity Yummy Mummy. Of course, we've got the ever classic Boo Berry. There he is, looking all spooky. And then, of course, Frankenberry. Now, a fun thing about this is that I thought I ordered all 5 of the main guys in pin format, but oops, I got him as a patch. So someday I'll make a little Count Chocula jacket or shirt or something, or even, I don't know, it's too big for a hat. But yeah, so I've got Count Chocula as well. So I know a lot of people have favorites there. My favorite is probably Fruit Brute, followed very closely by Fruity Yummy, or followed by Frankenberry. So big fan of those. And then of course, every Halloween they make a comeback. So I did manage to find a whole bunch of these. So of course I've got all the classics. Boo Berry, my favorite, like I mentioned before, we've got Fruit Brute. He's of course the werewolf. And as you noticed, these are all based on the Universal monsters, right? So Frankenstein being Frankenberry, Dracula, the Bela Lugosi style, being of course our little Count Chocula. And I have the ones that I have not found yet. I have not found Fruity Yummy Mummy. He doesn't come back as often as the others. When Fruit Root came back, I about flipped. But they did a monster mash, which was like all of them a couple of years ago. And so it's really fun because, of course, what's on the back? You can have a look at how much fun and all the little things that you can do. And of course, you can actually listen to the band, see how modern things have got. There's a lovely QR code, and you can listen to this Graveyard Smash. I'm going to guess that they're playing the song Monster Mash, but we'll find out. So this was celebrating 50 years of Monster cereals. Yep, world. And then, okay, so I think we'll find out if that's everything for now. When I ordered the pins, I also got a little mini version of Fruit Brute, which was adorable. The pin actually came in this. And so, yeah, it's a cute, tiny little cereal box. So anyway, so we've talked about the color that is involved in all of this. And so those bright colors would entice the kids to grab it. Hopefully they'll be able to put it in mom's grocery cart and be able to go home. And of course, this is how the great big sellers became what they were. And a lot of people, of course, the jingles that went with the ads were pretty fantastic as well. So as we've mentioned before, we've talked a little bit about some of the brands. Now, Kellogg's is obviously one of the iconic brands. They were the originator of the Corn Flake. They also did Frosted Flakes, which is the number 3 most popular cereal. We have Rice Krispies. We have Fruit Loops, which is the number 7 most favorite. And I just so happen to have, as you can see, we still have Toucan Sam are rocking it. And so I still have that. Yes, I still have probably maybe a bowl's worth, and maybe I'll eat that before the end of the episode. And so that is the number 7 most popular. And the funny thing is that has a Mandela effect, which we'll probably do an episode on Mandela effect. Mandela effect, just the short answer with that is that we collectively remember things different than they are. As in, do you remember the Monopoly guy? Does he have a monocle? Yes or no? And people don't always know. The Fruit of the Loom ads, do they have a cornucopia around the fruit, or is it just the fruit? So that's a lot of people have collectively remembered them wrong. And one of those is the spelling of Fruit Loops. Do you spell it Fruit? A lot of people thought that it used to be spelled that way, but from the beginning, it has been spelled with 2 O's. But because they use the little loops, a lot of people might get confused about it and think that it was spelled that way. Fruity Pebbles is not spelled with 2 O's. It is spelled UIT. So, and then of course Inger says, my heart believes that Hotel Transylvania was inspired by Count Chocula. I think you're probably right. Yeah, I believe that you are. And then Crystal said no. So we'll see. You might have to clear up and say what you're saying no to. Oh yes, fruit. So she had it right. She's got it right. Other people were trying to spell it wrong this whole time. It's supposed to be spelled wrong for the brand. So then also what Kellogg's has is Corn Pops, Special K, which is one of those for more adults, and then Apple Jacks. A is for apple, J is for Jacks, Cinnamon Toasty Apple Jacks. So of course there's more lyrics to that, but I've already forgotten those. Ernie, welcome. It's great to see you. And he's always hated cereal, mainly because I hate milk. I do remember eating some Cheerios, but never with milk. And Crystal says no monocle. That is correct. Monopoly guy did not have a monocle. Moneybags, I think was his name. So Ernie, now you bring up something that Stephen agrees with too. Stephen really wasn't interested in eating cereal with milk. He liked cereal that he could just grab the box and eat it like a snack. And you know what? Nobody's here to stop you doing that except maybe the milk companies. So and one of Stephen's favorites was always Cookie Crisp, because it was just like eating little tiny cookies. And so he still to this day will occasionally, when he feels it's on the diet, he will help himself to cereal, but not with milk. So that I've never had that problem. I've been a big fan of cereal with milk. So it's different for everyone. And then Crystal has always got the answers, and I love it. I love her for it. And the Fruit of the Loom logo has no cornucopia. That is correct. And Inger is on Team Snack as well. Instead of Team Milk, she's on Team Snack. Yes, Inger says no milk, only a box. So you are not alone, my friends. There are plenty of people that do it exactly that way, and it is totally fine. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I have my preference. You have yours. That's how we all get along, and I love it. All right, and then the rest of the Kellogg's main ones, we've got Crispix, which was them trying to do checks, and Crave, which was one of the ones that was my kid's favorite, very chocolatey, very rich, lots of sugar in that one as well. Now, General Mills, they have also joined up with Nestle, so anytime there is chocolate in a General Mills item, a lot of times it is Nestle chocolate, and they have the two biggest the number one and number two sellers, which are Cheerios and Honey Nut Cheerios. So many different flavors of Cheerios, and we mentioned Kellogg's Crispix, so many different flavors of Crispix. Trix, of course, being one of the classics, and oh yeah, I've got a lovely little white mountain puzzle. It looks like I got it at the half price bookstore. So I have a cute little 100-piece puzzle that has Trix, and of course that's Trix Rabbit. Let me see if I can turn that down. Hang on. We're getting there. There we go. So you can kind of see we've got our little Trix Rabbit there all along that. And that is one of the more popular ones as well. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is the number 5 most popular cereal in America, and which is also General Mills. And then Lucky Charms is number 6. So now I also have a Lucky Charms puzzle to show off. I showed you all the other Lucky Charms stuff too, and I've put those together a few different times. And so he's just a cute little Lucky Leprechaun. And Wheaties was also from General Mills, along with Cookie Crisp. Crazy Cow was one of my favorites in the 70s. It was one of the many cereals that when you had the strawberry version, it turned the milk pink. You had the chocolate version, it turned the milk brown and flavored the milk. And so as a milk with cereal person, I'm a big fan. I always liked that one quite a bit, but it didn't last very long. Now, there are a lot of brands that didn't last long and some that have lasted this very day. Now, Honey Smacks is one of those that's still going, but it used to be called Sugar Smacks. And Smacks was Diggin' the Frog. And so he was one of the ones that was selling it. And then right around the same time, and we'll get to that because he's with Post, we're going to talk about another one of those. Because it had so much sugar in it, they reduced the amount of sugar, used honey more instead of sugar, and got rid of sugar in the title so that it became Honey Smacks instead. Not to say that it's not still chock full of sugar, right? And then we've got Golden Grahams. It's going to be a golden day. And so that, of course, was very heavily flavored with honey, with graham cracker. Kaboom was an unusual one. It was just a corn puff cereal that had little clown smiley faces and had a clown. The clown didn't have a name. I wasn't really familiar with that one, but it was apparently out at around the time that I was enjoying cereals as a kid. Inger brings up Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Apple Jacks mixed together. Great call because it's appley and cinnamon and you put them together. Fantastic. I will tell you this, the Kelsey brothers, which we're big fans of here in Kansas City, the one from the Philadelphia Eagles and the one from the Kansas City Chiefs, they're brothers. They have a podcast that they do. And they talked about how they loved mixing up cereals. And so they worked with the cereal company. And now you can actually get a cereal that's called Kelsey, it's a Kelsey combo with 3 different, like it's got Lucky Charms and Cinnamon Toast Crunch and something else in it, and like it's genius. I love that people do that. Crystal says Cinnamon Toast Crunch is a favorite of mine. Then your leftover milk is like horchata. No, and I like cinnamon in small doses. Like I can't just like have a whole, like cinnamon gum makes me hiccup. I'm not crazy about cinnamon. If I have to pick between cinnamon and chocolate, I'm picking chocolate. But certain amounts of cinnamon I can get by with. I think the amount of cinnamon in Cinnamon Toast Crunch I can get by with. So I at least have that. And I love how your milk turns into horchata from that. That's perfect. And so then of course we have Raisin Bran, 2 scoops of raisins. And of course, for a while, that particular mascot was the sun. The sun in the sky was named Sunny, and he would make the raisins grow and then dry out, and then he'd put 2 scoops of raisins into the Raisin Bran. And then, of course, Frosted Mini Wheats, which was the number 8 most popular of the top 10 that I did study up on. Now we skip along to Post. Post had something back in the day called Crispy Critters. I had no idea that that was the name of a cereal, but apparently Crispy Critters also had a cartoon that went with it. I think it's Leo the Lionhearted. It's over here. Oh, Linus the Lionhearted. And it lasted for a couple of years. It was in the early 70s, so my memory isn't quite so fresh on that. And then they also were responsible, like I said before, for Grape Nuts. Gross. Honey Bunches of Oats is the number four of the top 10 cereals. And then I did not realize that in about 88, 89, Post had something called Crunchy Stars, which was the Swedish chef selling cereal. I had no idea. I wish I had tried it, but it only lasted for about a year and a half. Post is also responsible for Fruity Pebbles, which is number 10 on the top 10 of the most popular cereals, along with Cocoa Pebbles, Alphabets, Golden Crisp, and Honeycomb. And I did start singing Honeycomb when we first started, and that was the Honeycomb Kids. Like they were in the hideout, just kind of like a backyard treehouse or whatever. And adults would come in and it's like, no, this place is for kids, and we're going to eat honeycomb. And it's big, and they would pick a little measuring, they would take a little measuring tool to it and show people how big honeycomb was. And of course they had the jingle, honeycomb's big, yeah, 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 it's not small, no, 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 honeycomb's got a big, big taste, big, big bite, and a big, or something. I think I might have flipped that around. Either way, very catchy, made you want to buy it. Now, Post is also responsible for those cheaper Malto-Meal cereals that come in the big bags instead of all the cardboard and packaging. They come in bags. And Post is taking a piece of the pie of that particular purchase as well. And so then Ralston Purina, I don't believe they really exist any longer. They've kind of sold off. Like I think they're more in the animal food business, but for a while they were selling grains and grain foods to humans for human consumption. And they had Chex for a very long time. So many different flavors of Chex, right? And of course you'd use it to make puppy chow. And then Cookie Crisp they had until 1997 when it turned over to Post. And then Freakies, which I brought up before, which was just a popped corn cereal. And Grins, another popcorn, which had smiley faces, was called Grins and Smiles and Giggles and Laughs. And I really loved it. It didn't last very long, but it had these cute little characters. Each one was named Grin, Giggle, Laugh, and Smile. And I thought it was pretty good. They had these cute little wind-up toys that as part of the prizes. So that was the one that really drew me. Like I was very interested in grins and smiles and laugh and giggles and laughs, and I still don't even say it right. And then we were talking about Cracker Jack having prizes. Cracker Jack actually had a cereal through Ralston Purina for a while. Now, Quaker, one of the old hot cereal brands, also did some cold cereal as well, and they had Quake and Quisp. And Quake had a character who was just like a miner. He was just a big burly guy and had his miner's hat with the light on it. And then Quisp had an alien, and his name was Quisp. They were named Quisp and Quake. And people would almost make it like it was a contest, and you'd pick your favorite. Well, they actually had a voting contest, and Quisp ended up winning, and Quake was discontinued. They brought Quake back again as like Quake kangaroos, but they spelled kangaroos Q-U-A-N-G. Yeah, they made it difficult. And that one wasn't as popular either. But Quisp now considers themselves one of the first internet cereals because you could get it on the internet or only. You could order it and have it delivered. And you might still be able to do that. But finding Quisp on the shelves is a bit of a rarity. And so they also were responsible for a little something called Captain Crunch. That was a very popular, very sweet cereal, which also had some I would think of as spin-offs, which is Crunchberry with the Crunchberry Beast, Peanut Butter Crunch, which is of course the little peanut butter balls were really very good. And then of course every once in a while they'd go Oops All Berries or Oops All Christmas, or they'd make Christmas Crunch or Easter Crunch. And so Quaker was always looking out for new ways to sell the cereal and make changes in the colors or the tastes and still make it something that the kids would want to buy. Oh, this is a new one. Let's have some vanilla crunch. Let's have some chocolate crunch. And they did all of those. And then, of course, Quaker is also responsible for the number 9 most popular cereal, which is Life. And of course, one of the most popular mascots was Mikey. Let's give it to Mikey. He won't eat it. He hates everything. He eats it, and they're like, he likes it. Hey, Mikey. And so that's a classic ad that I didn't get added to the YouTube playlist, but I will. Yes, and Inger says it perfectly. Captain Crunch the death of the roof of your mouth. It was so ridged and crusty that when you would take a bite, and it stayed so crunchy in milk for so long that it would just cause havoc and cut up the roof of your mouth. So yes, it was very, you had to eat it very carefully, and it was very difficult to be able to pull off without just ruining the roof of your mouth. So we've already mentioned some of the characters, and I really want to get into the characters because these are the mascots. These are the ones, most of which were invented to sell you cereal. And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, advertising is a fun house mirror into what the culture of that time was, what our culture is now, what we wish it to be, what the advertising execs wished it to be, or trying to make us want. And so one of the earliest ones was Cornelius Rooster, the Kellogg's Rooster. And so he was oftentimes jokingly called Corny. And of course, we've got to bring up, I hope he's in here. Oh no, I don't have him. That particular one that I have, I actually have quite a few cereal bowls, and as we run through the different characters, I'll show those to you. And so he's Corny. And the interesting thing is that the rooster got picked because one of the people around W.K. Kellogg said that the word for rooster in Welsh sounds a little bit like Kellogg. So Kellogg is how you say rooster in Welsh, and Kellogg's had the rooster. And so, of course, in the morning you hear the rooster crow, and of course all the commercials that he was in, and the big thing was the best to you each morning. And of course, that was one of the big ones. Now, one of the other ones that we know and love is Snap, Crackle, and Pop from Rice Krispies, and I know I've got a couple of those bowls. And look, here we go. We've got my little bowl that says the best to you each morning because Kellogg's did this as well. We've got a lovely little Snap, Crackle, and Pop on that particular bowl. And we also have, I have some glass bowls, so good luck me, a newer, like more anime looking version of Snap, Crackle, and Pop. I'm going to drop my light here so you can get a good look at our boys, Snap, Crackle, and Pop in a more modern setting. And then I also had a very large bowl, and what's great is a lot of these really are just redos. Like, these probably didn't exist in the 1970s, but the popularity of the pop culture of it all is part of what makes it so interesting. And so, of course, we have all of these wonderful bowls that I've managed to find for fairly cheap at thrift shops over the years, because most of these items would have come out in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, to just kind of go on that nostalgia kick that we love to go on. So, and then Inger brings it up, Tony the Tiger, he's great. And of course I have one, and I just need to leave this off, don't I? So you can see all the details. But yeah, so there's our Tony the Tiger. I think he's holding some skis for the Winter Olympics. He's a little bit worn out. Some of these are a little older than others. Like I said, those plastic ones definitely are. And Tony was a classic. And so there was a really great booming voice that he had from a really talented voiceover actor. And then, of course, I mentioned before, we had Linus the Lionhearted for Crispy Critters and had his own cartoon show. We have Kaboom the Clown and the Honeycomb Kids, which we already mentioned. Now, we also had a guy named King Vitaman, and he used to be a cartoon. Then they had a live-action actor play him, which wasn't creepy at all. He was an older fella. And then they went back, and unfortunately, sadly, that particular actor died, and they went back to having a cartoon mascot again. And so, and of course, it was always, we talk a lot about all the fortified with vitamins and minerals, and it had a little, but it was more for the joy of eating it, not so much for the health that came with it. And then, of course, we mentioned Tony Tiger. What does he say? They're great. And as Inger says, he's great. I agree. He's really awesome. And then, of course, Lucky is the Lucky the Leprechaun. They're always after me, Lucky Charms. I think I've showed a few different things. I'm kind of checking to see if I have anything else that includes him. I don't think I do. I think I've already showed you all of his. And, of course, Toucan Sam, follow your nose, it always knows. And I have another one of those, so we'll show you this little guy. And isn't that great? It's got like the little handle on it. And there's his name, Toucan Sam, and then Kellogg's, you can see it's Kellogg sponsored. So they knew how they could make money by selling you some cereal bowls to eat your cereal in. And then Buzz the Bee, Honey of an O, Honey Nut Cheerios. There he is. Let's get a picture of him. This is actually some legit, like, Of course it's popular. I have this here in my house. So so we do have that. And then as you can see, I do have Special K. One of my favorite flavors is vanilla and almond. And so I haven't decided yet. I'll have you guys help decide for me. I am going to have a bowl when I get finished with all this because it is snack time for me. I'll either have Special K or I'll have Fruit Loops. You all need to tell me which one you think I should have. So let me know. Oh, yes. And Inger says it perfectly. Lucky is my Irish accent. And we use it for inspiration, don't we? And I love that Lucky is an inspiration for you and your accent. Now, I do have one other bowl that's pretty cool that I bought just last year. At Christmas time, they had some old classic looking bowls that had some characters. Well, for cornflakes, instead of corny, they decided to put Santa, and it's the Norman Rockwell Santa, and it was only like $1 extra. Of course, I bought, a box of cornflakes or corn pops or whatever it was that was part of the promotion, but I ended up getting this cute little bowl, and of course now we can use it for cereal and enjoy that as well. And then we do also have Tony the Tiger on another one of my another one of my ceramic bowls, and look at that, we've got his little autograph there, pretty darn cool, and a paw print. Yeah, autograph and paw print. I love it. And so then of course we mentioned Silly Rabbit Trickster for Kids. Now this is one of my most recent buys. I found Trix Rabbit, and look, he's even got a little Trix bunny there, and very cute little guy, and I found him for just like, I don't know, $5 at the thrift shop, so of course I really wanted to have him, so I got him. And then we've spoken about the monster cereals being one of my all-time favorites. I got a lot of stuff, guys. I really, really do. I've got not only the Monster Puzzle, which is a fantastic puzzle that has the 5 main guys. Now, something I didn't realize, there was a new one that came out called Carmella Creeper, and it was caramel apple cereal. I had no idea that it even existed, and so I was clearly behind the times. I lost my fool mind when the Jim Henson Company decided to make puppet versions of the monster cereal, so of course I absolutely lost it there and have watched those videos over and over. Now we also have a Monster Crunch cereal battle game. Caitlin actually helped me play this at one point, and look, it even looks like it's a box of cereal itself. Caitlin helped me play it. It's a little bit weird, kind of complicated, but still very fun, and it has the 5 main guys as well. And then of course Crystal brings up that Buzz is the name of the Honey Nut Cheerios bee, Buzz the bee, and so hopefully, maybe, that might be all of my monster cereals. I know I can go on and on about them. And I also love puzzles. So this is a 1,000-piece puzzle that has all the different cereal boxes, and it's got old stuff and new stuff, things you recognize, old versions of stuff that you may or may not recognize. So that was a very fun puzzle that I put together fairly often, at least once a year. And then we also have Sugar Bear, because we had something called Super Sugar Smacks. Then they're like, ooh, too much sugar. Let's get rid of that word sugar. And then they switched it to Super Smacks. And then I think that at some point they just called them not Smacks. Sorry. Oh my gosh, I've completely forgotten the name. Golden Crisp. So it was Super Sugar Crisp and Sugar Bear. Sugar Bear was like one of the coolest dudes. He just kind of wore the sweater. He's this kind of lanky looking bear. He was very chilled out, had a very like relaxed vocal delivery, and that was for Golden Crisp. Now Golden Crisp went through what Honey Smacks went through, which is why I get them confused in my head. So it was Golden Crisp, it was Super Sugar Crisp, then it was Super Golden Crisp, and now it's just Golden Crisp. And so of course Sugar Bear was part of that. We've already talked about Diggum and Sunny from Raisin Bran. We've talked about Fred from Flintstone and Brawny, Quisp and Quake. Interesting thing about Quisp and Quake. Jay Ward, if you know Rocky and Bullwinkle, he's the animator for that. He animated those along with a whole bunch of other characters. So if you ever notice a similarity, that would be the reason why. And then we also had John Kricfalusi, who did Ren and Stimpy. When Quisp and Quake made a nostalgic comeback for a while, he animated a bunch of stuff. So that was definitely in keeping with that concept. Now, we also mentioned Sunny, who's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And then we also mentioned the Freakies, which is kind of a bit of a rarity, which was Snorkeldorf, Goody Goody, Hambone, and Boss Moss. And now Wheaties. They don't really have a mascot, but they were very well known for putting athletes, particularly Olympic ones, and sometimes baseball, football, even soccer. They would put athletes on the Wheaties box. And so when you made it on the Wheaties box, like there's winning a gold medal And then there's also getting on the Wheaties box. And so that was definitely something that was a big deal. Now, interestingly enough, some sports people would make it onto Golden Crisp as well. And oh my, which sports character do you think would be the thing that would make me buy Golden Crisp after years and years of not buying anything? Of course, Becky Lynch. And interestingly enough, this is in her man era. And so you could actually buy Honeycomb that had the Big Show on it too. And so you, of course, have this free 3-month trial of WWE Network, which now doesn't exist. It got folded into Peacock. But while it lasted, I got myself a Becky Lynch Golden Crisp. And of course, as I mentioned before, there's Sugar Bear looking all cool up at the top. Still there. And then you have some tie-ins. Of course, we've got my daughter bought me some Demogorgon Crunch. Look at how Kellogg's did some Stranger Things, and I believe it's Eggo. Yeah, it's supposed to look like they're supposed to look like waffles and flashlights, Demogorgons, and D20 dice. So very, very cool. And of course, the design, they wanted to make as much out of it as they possibly could, which I think they did. Then we've got. Have you ever heard of this fella? His name is Horatio Magellan Crunch. That is Captain Crunch's full name, Horatio Magellan Crunch. He sails his ship called the Guppy in the Sea of Milk, along with Crunchberry Beast. And, of course, he gets chased around by Pirate Lafoot, and he has an elephant first mate called Smedley, which is the peanut butter elephant. And then, of course, we have Cookie Crisp. Now, Cookie Crisp, a lot of people don't realize, started with the character Cookie Jarvis, who is a wizard. Then, the Cookie Crook and the Cop, so it was Cops and Robbers for a while. Then, the Cookie Crook got a dog to help him out called Chip the dog, who would say, Cookie Crisp, which is where that came from. And then they just took all of the rest of it away and then just decided to call Chip the wolf instead, and he yells Cookie Crisp. And so that's where that particular thing went through a lot of different changes. Cinnamon Toast Crunch did a little bit too. They had bakers, and then they had the actual pieces of Cinnamon Toast Crunch eating each other. Not scary at all. But, you know, when you make the food anamorphic, it's a little weird, right? Isn't it? I don't know. Maybe I don't have it right. Then, of course, you had Kix, which didn't have a mascot, but they had a slogan. Kid tested, mother approved. And other products that went beyond just being a cold cereal, I mentioned before, I Want My Mapo. I have added that to my YouTube list. I hope you guys will get a chance to listen to that. Nesquik. You'd have your instant cereal, milk that would turn, when you wanted chocolate milk or strawberry milk, you had Nesquik and the Nesquik bunny. How cute was he? And then you also had Carnation instant breakfast. You're going to love it in an instant. And then Pop-Tarts, of course, the classic. And they didn't used to look like this and be in all these different flavors, but I did add a few of those ads to the YouTube playlist, which I will try to reshare. And then you can also have a Pop-Tart game. This is a fun one, a little bit newer. And of course, got our little toaster there. Cute little game that you can play that we'll probably play when we go to the lake. And then, of course, Eggo. I mentioned Stranger Things. Oh, and the Pop-Tarts toaster. Like the Pop-Tarts were in risk of getting eaten in the newer commercials, which I thought was funny, but also a little weird. And then, yes, Crystal says it. Serial killers did enter the chat. Yeah. It did. It happened. And then we have some mashups, of course. Chips Ahoy, Oreo O's, Reese's Puffs. They all kind of got mashed up. We also use them for cooking. Like, how many recipes do you know of that have cornflakes as part of the recipe, and it's like a savory dish? And some people will use it for Rice Krispie treats. What a classic. And now you can buy them, or you can make them at home, and that's part of the recipe, right? And so you can also make, people are making recipes with Golden Grams, or they're making recipes with Lucky Charms. Lots of different options there, and quite delicious. And so, and then of course some of the more adult things like Nutri-Grain and those type of things. So yes, Inger says food sticks, the food of the astronauts. Absolutely. And so as we simplify and get in too much of a hurry with our eating, sometimes that's exactly what happens. So as we wrap up, I've got 2 minutes, so I've got to make sure that I get through. I've got the tie-in list, which is Spider-Man, The Avengers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Pac-Man, Pokemon, Barbie, Bart Simpson, Batman, WWE, Star Wars, Cabbage Patch Kids, Cars, Cat in the Hat, Dora, E.T., Donkey Kong, Ghostbusters, Mr. T, Shrek, Smurfs, Sonic, and SpongeBob. All of them have had a cereal at one time or another. So that is definitely one of the big ones. These days, we now have some healthier versions of that called Magic Spoon. We also have some strange ones. Who wants to eat Sour Patch Kids cereal? I'm not sure, but somebody's out there. And then we have a few other little outside things. There was so much sugar, and most of the commercials were either the kids keeping the cereal away from Trix Rabbit or Lucky trying to keep the cereal away from the kids. There was always some kind of cops and robbers chase. Silly Rabbit, tricks are for kids. They're after me, Lucky Charms. And so this became such a trope that it's still something that we know to this very day. Of course, we have our healthy stuff like muesli, all brand, oat brand, fiber one, product 19, total, special K, which I mentioned just before, just right, which was a combination of bran as well as fruit, and Tori Amos was in one of those commercials, and I've added that to my commercial stuff as well. So of course, like I said, they're often touted for health, but they're often chock full of sugar. So, has anybody decided, am I having Special K or am I having Fruit Loops? Have we decided what we're having? Because while you guys are deciding, I get to make my announcement, which is what is next week's theme? You may ask yourself. And next week's theme, in fact, hang on, I've got to make sure I know it. Oh, yes. Next week when we have this, it's going to be April 7th. April 8th is Rex Manning Day. And so we're going to talk about the movie Empire Records and all of your favorite record stores. So our focus will be on the movie Empire Records, which is about an independent record store. All right, she's decided Fruit Loops is happening. And let's see, how about, if I'm having Fruit Loops, I might as well have it in a Fruit Loops bowl. So I'm going to do a little pour. You're going to get a little bit of audio moment as I pour a little bit of cereal. That's all that's left. Yep, I'm finishing it off, guys. Crystal says Special K. She's too late. I might have, and this is the thing is, I'll be able to stay on diet with this because there's so little of it. There's not very much. So I did actually pack myself a little bit of milk. So I'm going to pour a little milk here so that we're ready to go. So I can enjoy this. And I did also bring a spoon. But like I said, we're going to talk about record stores, more specifically as many as possible independent record stores, as much as we can. And Crystal said it, damn the man, save the empire. So I have a feeling she'll be with us the day before Rex Manning Day, and we'll talk about what that means, Rex Manning Day, and why that's important to a movie like Empire Records. So if you decide to do some homework and you haven't watched Empire Records, or if you have, watch it again between now and next week, and we'll talk all about it. And like I said, let's hear your memories about record stores and what you loved about them and what your favorites were and all of that. So I have definitely gone to the top of the hour. Thank you guys so much for viewing. Thank you so much for commenting. It's always tricky when I'm here alone without a peanut gallery to help me out. And you guys were my peanut gallery. So thank you, one and all of you that watched, all of you watching later, thanks as well. I'm going to eat my cereal as we go off. Got to take the first bite though. Excellent choice.